Hi, my name is Jocelyn Neal, and this is our 9th session in our Melodic Dictation workshop series. I'm so glad you're here. Today, we will be focusing on free response question number 2 from the AP Music Theory exam. We will also be focusing on chromatically altered pitches beyond just the raised scale degrees 6 and 7 in a minor mode, and we will be focusing on some compound duple rhythmic patterns. Now, if you haven't already done sessions 1 through 8, I recommend you jump over and do those first, then come back and join us here. As always, you will need to be somewhere that you can sing out loud. That's really important. You will also need some staff paper and a pencil. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, I would really appreciate it if you would just pop down and click that right now. Now let's get started. Let's talk for a moment about free response question number 2 on the AP Music Theory exam. When this question is graded, there are 9 possible points, and we know that the scores on this question are pretty low. In fact, statistically, this is the hardest question on the exam. In the last 3 years, you can see here that the mean score on this question out of 9 possible points was just barely above 3. So you're really only on average getting about a third of the possible points on this question. Trevor Packer, who is the head of the AP program, in 2025 posted that the most challenging question was question number 2, melodic dictation, with 14% of the students earning most or all of the 9 available points. And in 2024, he posted Q2, a melodic dictation task, was again the most difficult AP Music Theory free response question for students, with around 27% scoring a 0 or a 1 out of the 9 points possible. If we go back in previous years, you're going to find the same kinds of statements about this question. So, what is free response question 2? It is a melodic dictation question, and on the surface, it looks a lot like free response question number 1. However, it also is likely to contain a chromatically altered pitch beyond just the adjustments of scale degrees 6 and 7 in a minor mode, which we have already encountered and worked on. Question number 2 is more likely to have multiple complicating factors, by which I mean it's more likely to be in bass clef, it's more likely to be in the minor mode, and it's more likely to be in compound duple meter. Basically, you're looking at 6/8 for that. Overall, this melody just has more leaps in it, it's going to have more complicated rhythms, and it just has more notes in it. On this question, you're going to get 4 hearings rather than the 3 hearings that you had on free response question 1. So that's a quick tour of free response question 2. Now let's talk about these chromatically altered pitches. If you think about your scale degree ladder, and today we'll talk about all of this in the major mode, we know where the relationships are between those scale degrees. We always have in our head a good sense of where scale degrees 1 and 5 are. We can identify that tonic triad of 1, 3, 5, or do, mi, so, and we know where the half-step patterns are in a major scale. When we add in the idea of chromatically altered pitches, let's talk first about the idea of raised scale degrees. In these instances, we take a diatonic scale degree and we raise it, which then imposes on it a tendency to resolve up to the next scale degree. In each of these cases, these raised scale degrees are behaving like a local leading tone, needing to resolve up to the next pitch in the scale. So raised scale degree 1 is the syllable D, and it wants to resolve to scale degree 2, which is re. We encounter raised scale degree 2 with the syllable re, which wants to resolve up to mi. We encounter raised scale degree 4, which is the syllable fi and wants to resolve to so. We hear raised scale degree 5, we give it that syllable si, and that wants to resolve up to la. Raised scale degree 6 is the syllable li, and it wants to resolve up to scale degree 7, which is t. There's one more scale degree that is a chromatic alteration, which we encounter regularly in AP Music Theory, and that is lowered scale degree 7. It has the syllable te. It behaves in most contexts like a chordal 7th, and it wants to resolve down to the syllable la, or scale degree 6. For today, we're really going to focus on scale degree raised 4. That's the syllable fi, and it's acting as a local leading tone, wanting to resolve up to scale degree 5, or so. With all that in mind, let's warm up. Here's our key. Solfege a scale, double do on top. 3, 4. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, so, fa, mi, re, do. Intervals. 3, 4. Major second, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, perfect octave. Minor second, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, minor sixth, minor seventh, perfect octave. Major second, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major second, major third, perfect fourth. And let's sing our scale in thirds. 3, 4. Do, mi, re, fa, mi, so, fa, la, so, ti, la, do, ti, re, do. Do, la, ti, so, la, fa, so, mi, fa, re, mi, do, re, ti, do. Now let's switch keys and we'll tonicize. Here's our new key. Three, 4. Do, mi, so, fa, mi, la, so, ti, do, re, do, ti, do, so, mi, do. And let's switch keys again and do another tonicization pattern. Here's our new key. And let's sing tonicization pattern number 2. Do, mi, fa, sol, la, fa, mi, re, so, mi, re, do, ti, la, fa, re, la, ti, so, mi, re, do. We'll stay in that key and we will run all of our interval combinations. Here's tonic. Here we go. 3, 4. Do, re, do, mi, do, fa, do, so, do, la, do, ti, do, re, mi, re, fa, re, so, re, la, re, ti, re, do, mi, re, do, mi, fa, mi, so, mi, la, mi, ti, mi, do, mi, re, do, fa, so, fa, la, fa, ti, fa, do, fa, mi, re, do, so, la, so, ti, so, do, so, fa, so, mi, re, do, la, ti, la, do, la, so, la, fa, la, mi, re, do, ti, do, ti, la, ti, so, ti, fa, ti, mi, re, do, ti, do, la, do, so, do, fa, do, mi, re, do. And today we are going to add some warm-ups to get us used to singing chromatic lower neighbors. These are going to be raised scale degrees resolving up to the scale degree above them. Let's switch keys. Here's our new key. And let's sing our chromatic lower neighbor warm-up. Here's tonic. 3, 4. Do, re, di, re, mi, fa, so, fi, so, la, si, la, ti, li, ti, do, ti, li, ti, la, si, la, so, fi, so, fa, mi, re, di, re, do. Let's stay in that key and sing our chromatic pattern warm-up. Here's tonic. And here we go. Do, re, mi, fa, fi, so, si, la, ti, do, te, la, fi, so, fa, re, mi, re, do. Now let's work on our rhythmic patterns in compound duple. Grab some staff paper, and these are going to be 1-bar rhythmic patterns in the time signature of 6/8. You will hear each pattern only once, and so write it down. You're just transcribing the rhythm. You don't have to worry about pitch. Write this rhythm down in real time so that you're focusing on capturing that whole rhythmic pattern as a single entity and transcribing it as quickly as possible. I will play each pattern on my keyboard, and you will hear 1 bar of 6/8 from the metronome before we begin. Here we go. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. Now let's take a look at the answers. Here are the rhythmic patterns that I played. Now, let's do some 1-bar transcriptions that involve both pitch and rhythm. In each case, we are going to be focusing on hearing raised scale degree 4. That's our emphasis in today's session. So we're going to be transcribing in the key of D major, and you're going to be listening for raised scale degree 4, which would be the pitch G sharp. That G sharp is going to function as a local leading tone and resolve back to scale degree 5. We're going to be working in 6/8 compound duple meter, and you'll notice that I have given you the first pitch of each measure. For the first 4 exercises, we will be hearing this starting on a low scale degree 1. For the 5th and 6th measures, we're starting on a high scale degree 1. And then for our 7th and 8th exercise here, we're starting on scale degree 3. So go ahead and write in the first pitch of each of these 1-bar transcriptions. You will hear the metronome for 1 measure of 6/8, and then you will hear each melody only once. Here's tonic. Here's that key. Here we go. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Notice the new starting pitch for number 5. Here's number 5. Number 6. Notice the new starting pitch for number 7. We're beginning on scale degree 3. Here's number 7. And number 8. Here are the solutions. These are the melodies that I played. Remember that you're recording both pitch and rhythm. And let's look at the patterns. These are the locations melodically in which we are likely to find raised scale degree 4. You might hear it as a lower neighbor to 5. You might hear it as a double neighbor to 5. This would be hearing scale degree 6, then sharp 4, then 5. You might hear it as scale degree 4, rising to raised scale degree 4, resolving up to 5. You might find the scalar passage 3, sharp 4, 5. And you might find a leap into scale degree raised 4 of 2, sharp 4, 5. In each case, that pitch here is a G sharp, and that G sharp is resolving up to A. Now, take a look at measures 6 and measure 8. In these particular cases, we had a raised scale degree 4, and then later in the measure, we had a lowered scale degree 4. So it is absolutely crucial that you remember to add your accidental in for that lowered scale degree 4. In this case, that would be a G natural. Now, let's get set up to do our dictation exercise. Grab your staff paper. Today, let's work in the bass clef. We're going to have a key signature of 3 flats, B flat, E flat, and A flat. We will have a time signature of 6/8. We are in compound duple meter. And these free response question 2 melodies also are going to have 4 bars if we are in 6/8. Our first note is going to be an E flat 3. You will have the note head given to you, but you don't have any stem on it. So your first task is going to make sure you put an appropriate stem on that note to represent its rhythmic value. We're going to do a couple of additional things before our first hearing. First of all, we're going to look at that first note, the key signature, and we're going to identify our key. In this case, we are in E flat major, and we're going to write that on our paper so that we have a visual reference. We're going to jump over to that last bar. We're going to put in our best guess of the last note. We don't know that it's the correct final pitch, but we want something that is a visual target to help us in that first hearing. I'm in 6/8, so I'm going to put a dotted quarter note on the pitch E flat 3 in the middle of my last bar. Now we want to be thinking in 6/8, bum ta ta, bum ta ta, and we are thinking in groupings of 3/8 notes. Also, we'll just go ahead and say that for this particular exercise, we are really focusing today on raised scale degree 4. So we know there's going to be a chromatic pitch in here, and I want you to be listening for that chromatic pitch. Here's our first hearing. Okay, that was our first hearing. On that first hearing, we absolutely want to get the first 3 notes and the last 3 notes so that we are getting that melodic opening and that melodic cadence. In this particular case, the first 3 notes started on tonic, and then we moved up to scale degree 2 and down to scale degree 7. So here's what we heard. And those were all in even eighth notes. Moving over to our last bar, the closing melody was a scalar descent to tonic. So we're going to come down from scale degree 3 through scale degree 2 down to tonic. We'll get the rhythms of that on our next hearing. I also want us to be listening on this second hearing for scalar patterns, for arpeggiations, and for the tonicization of scale degree 5, which is that scale degree raised 4. Here's our second hearing. Okay, that was our second hearing. Some things we might have noticed this time is that the chromatically altered pitch, which should stand out to our ears, is over here in measure 2. And we also wanted to catch something about the identity of measure 3. In measure 3, I heard a tonic arpeggiation of scale degrees 3, 5, 1, mi, so, do, up to that high scale degree 1, which is an anchor pitch on tonic. And so I heard at the beginning, do, re, ti. And in measure 3, I heard mi, so, do. And my closing melody was mi, re, do. Make sure you're listening for scalar passages, for that tonicization of scale degree 5, where we hear raised scale degree 4 resolving up to 5, and you're listening for arpeggiations. Here's another hearing. Okay, let's add a little more information to our melodic transcription here. We opened with do, re, ti, and then a tonic arpeggiation, do, mi, so. Let's sing that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do, re, ti, do, mi, so. And we'll write that in. We heard that dotted rhythm. And then in measure 3, we have our tonic arpeggiation. Mi, so, do. And our close, mi, re, do. Let's do our fourth and final hearing and finish our transcription. Let's work on this melody together. As I mentioned, on the AP Music Theory exam, you'll have 60 seconds between each of your second and third, and then after your fourth hearing. We're just doing 30 seconds here as we're talking through and guiding this dictation. So as we begin, we know we have already labeled our key. Our opening melody was scale degrees 1, 2, 7, 1, and that led to a tonic arpeggiation of do, mi, so. In measure 2, we have a wraparound pattern where we step up to scale degree 6, we come down through 5, and we hear a raised scale degree 4. Since we're in the key of E flat major, raised scale degree 4 is the pitch A natural, and that raised scale degree 4 resolves back to scale degree 5. We then step down to a lowered scale degree 4, and please remember you must put that accidental back on that pitch. It must be an A flat explicitly. In measure 3, we have a tonic arpeggiation, scale degrees 3, 5, 1, followed by a descending scale of 7, 6, 5. And then we skip down to scale degree 3. So I definitely want to hear that tonic arpeggiation of 3, 5, 1, and I want to hear this scale coming down 7, 6, 5. In the last bar, I step up to scale degree 4. In a dotted rhythm, I descend 4, 3, 2, and I cadence on tonic. Let's talk about some of the features that we hear in this melody. Our opening double neighbor pattern of 1, 2, 7, 1 is wrapping around tonic. Do, re, ti, do. We hear the arpeggiation of tonic 1, 3, 5, do, mi, so. And then we hear another wraparound pattern where we step up to 6, come down through 5, catch our raised scale degree 4, and back to 5. You'll notice that when I'm talking about the scale degree, I'm going to use the sharp to indicate that it's raised. When I'm writing the pitch on the staff, I use the natural to raise the pitch to A natural. We're going to hear that as a wraparound pattern again, wrapping around 5. We come back down through a lowered scale degree 4. We arpeggiate tonic. We descend on a scale. We have our jump from scale degree 5 to 3. And then we descend 4, 3, 2, 1, fa, mi, re, do, down a scale at the end. Let's sing the whole thing on solfege. Here's tonic. 4, 5, 6. Do, re, ti, do, mi, so, la, so, fi, so, fa, mi, so, do, ti, la, so, mi, fa, mi, re, do. Let's look at measure 2 one more time so we can really identify that raised scale degree 4 in context. Here's scale degree 6. And you hear that pattern of wrapping around 5. And then back to a lowered scale degree 4. And let's listen to the whole melody one more time. Here is your final melodic transcription. Thanks for watching.